Ants are superheroes. No, we're not talking about your mom or dad's sister, though they can be pretty cool too. Our focus today is on one of the smallest and mightiest insects in the world. Get ready for a supersized journey through the world of ants. What are ants? Ants are eusocial bugs of the lineage Formicidae and belong to the order Hymenoptera and the corresponding bees and wasps. Ants developed from vespoid wasp ancestors in the Cretaceous period and diversified after the advancement of flowering plants. More than 13,800 of an estimated total of 22,000 species have been classified. They are readily identified by their elbowed antennae and thin abdomen's unique node-like design. Ants create colonies that range from a few dozen predatory individuals living in small natural hollows to incredibly organized colonies that may inhabit extensive territories and consist of millions of individuals. Larger colonies consist of different castes of sterile wingless females, most of which are workers, soldiers, and other specialized groups. Nearly all ant colonies also have some fertile males called drones, and one or more fertile females called queens. The colonies are represented as superorganisms because the ants work as cooperative entities, collectively working to sustain the colony. Ants have inhabited almost every continent on Earth. Antarctica and a few remote or inhospitable islands are the only places lacking indigenous ants. Ants flourish in most ecosystems and may form 15 to 25% of the terrestrial animal biomass. Their domination in many surroundings has been attributed to their colonial organization and ability to modify habitats, defend themselves, and tap resources. Their long co-evolution with other species has led to parasitic, mutualistic, mimetic, and commensal relationships. Ant communities have a department of labor, contact between individuals, and a capacity to solve complicated problems. These similarities with human cultures have long been an inspiration and subject of investigation. Many human cultures use ants in cooking, medicine, and rituals. Some species are valued in their role as biological pest control agents. However, their capacity to exploit resources may bring ants into a dispute with humans, as they can harm crops and infest buildings. Some varieties, such as South America's red imported fire ant, are deemed invasive in other parts of the world, affirming themselves in places they have been accidentally introduced. The history of ants. The family Formicidae belongs to the order Hymenoptera, which also comprises bees, wasps, and sawflies. Ants evolved from a genealogy within the stinging wasps, and a 2013 study indicates that they are a sister group of the Apoidea. In 1966, E.O. Wilson and his colleagues defined the fossil remains of an ant that lived in the Cretaceous period. The specimen, trapped in amber dating back to around 92 million years ago, has characteristics found in some wasps, but not seen in everyday ants. Sphaecomyrma was perhaps a ground forager, while Haedomyrmex and Haedomyrmodes, related genera in the subfamily Sphaecomyrminae, are reconstructed as active arboreal predators. Older ants in the genus Sphaecomyrmodes have been discovered in 99-million-year-old amber from Myanmar. A 2006 study implied that ants arose tens of millions of years earlier than once believed, up to 168 million years ago. After the rise of flowering plants around 100 million years ago, they diversified and embraced ecological dominance around 60 million years ago. Some groups, such as the Leptonillinae and Marshallinae, are believed to have diversified from early primitive ants that were probably predators underneath the exterior of the soil. During the Cretaceous period, a few species of primitive ants varied widely in the northern hemisphere. Their representation in the fossil record is inadequate likened to the populations of other insects, depicting only about 1% of fossil proof of insects in the era. Ants became prevalent after adaptive radiation at the beginning of the Paleogene period. By the Oligocene and Miocene, Ants made up 20 to 40% of all insects found in significant fossil sediments. Of the species that lived in the Eocene epoch, around 1 in 10 genera persist to the present. Genera surviving today include 56% of the genera in Baltic amber fossils and 92% in Dominican amber fossils. Ants have a sophisticated distribution. They are found on all mainlands except Antarctica, and only a few large islands, like Greenland, Iceland, parts of Polynesia, and the Hawaiian Islands, lack native ant types. Ants inhabit a wide range of ecological niches and manipulate many different food resources as natural or indirect herbivores, scavengers, and predators. Most ant species are omnivorous generalists, but a few are specialist feeders. Their biomass indicates their ecological dominance. Ants are believed to contribute 15 to 20% on average, and nearly 25% in the tropics of terrestrial animal biomass, surpassing that of the vertebrates. Ant characteristics. Ants range in size from 0.0030 inches to 2 inches in length, the largest species being the fossil Titanomyrma giganteum, the queen of which was 2.5 inches long with a wingspan of 6 inches. Ants range in color. Most ants are red or black, but a few species are green, and some tropical varieties have a metallic sheen. More than 13,800 types of ants are currently documented, with upper estimates of the potential existence of about 22,000, with the most incredible variety in the tropics. Taxonomic investigations continue to determine the classification and systematics of ants. Online databases of ant species, including AntWeb and the Hymenoptera name server, assist in keeping track of the known and newly defined species. The comparative ease with which ants may be sampled and analyzed in ecosystems has made them helpful as indicator species in biodiversity studies. Ants are distinguishable in their morphology from other insects in having elbowed antennae, a strong constriction of their second abdominal segment into a node-like petiole, and metapleural glands. The head, mesosoma, and metasoma are the 3 distinct body segments. The petiole includes a narrow waist between the thorax plus the first abdominal part, which is fused to it, and the stomach less the abdominal segments in the petiole. The petiole may be constructed by 1 or 2 nodes, the second alone or the second and third abdominal components. Like other insects, ants have an exoskeleton. This external covering supplies a defensive casing around the body and a juncture of attachment for muscles, in contrast to the interior skeletons of humans and other vertebrates. Insects do not have lungs. Oxygen and other gases, such as carbon dioxide, pass through their exoskeleton through tiny valves called spiracles. Insects also lack closed blood vessels. Instead, they have a long, thin, perforated tube along the top of the body called the dorsal aorta that functions like a heart and pumps hemolymph toward the head, thus pushing the circulation of the interior liquids. The nervous system consists of a ventral nerve cord that ranges the length of the body, with several ganglia and branches reaching into the appendage's extremities. An ant's head has many sensory organs. Like most insects, ants have compound eyes made from multiple tiny lenses. Ant eyes are suitable for acute movement detection, but do not offer a high-resolution image. They also have 3 simple eyes on the top of the head that notice light levels and polarization. Compared to vertebrates, ants have blurrier eyesight, especially in smaller species, and a few subterranean taxa are entirely blind. However, some ants, such as Australia's bulldog ant, have perfect vision and can determine the distance and size of objects moving nearly 3 feet away. 2 antennae are attached to the head. These organs detect chemicals, air currents, and vibrations, and are utilized to send and receive signals via touch. The head has 2 powerful jaws. The mandibles haul food, control objects, build nests, and defend the individual. In some species, a small pouch inside the mouth stores food, so it can be handed to other ants or nymphs. both the legs and wings of the ant are connected to the mesosoma. The legs end in a hooked claw which permits them to hook on and climb surfaces. Only reproductive ants, queens and males, have wings. Queens shed their wings after the marital flight, leaving visible stubs, a distinctive feature of queens. In a few species, wingless queens and males appear. The metasoma of the ant accommodates vital internal organs, including those of the respiratory, excretory systems, and reproductive. Workers of many types have their egg-laying structures altered into stings for capturing prey and protecting their nests. There are physical castes in the colonies of a few ant species, workers in particular size categories called minor, median, and major agates. Usually, the bigger ants have disproportionately enormous heads and correspondingly more powerful mandibles. These are known as macrogates, while smaller workers are known as microgates. Although formerly known as denigrates, such varieties are periodically called soldier ants because their more powerful mandibles make them more useful in combat. However, they still are workers, and their duties generally do not differ significantly from the minor or median workers. The median workers are missing in a few types, creating a sharp divide between minors and majors. Weaver ants, for example, have a specific bimodal size allocation. Some other species show constant variation in the size of workers. The smallest and largest workers in Kerubara diversa offer nearly a 500-fold contrast in dry weights. Workers cannot breed, however, because of the haplodiploid sex determination system in ants. Workers of several types can lay unfertilized eggs that become fully fertile haploid males. Workers' duties may vary with age, and in some species, such as honeypot ants, young workers are fed until their gasters are distended and act as living food storage containers. These food storage workers are known as repletes. For example, these replete workers develop in the North American honeypot ant Myrmecocystus mexicanus. Usually, the most prominent workers in the colony grow into repletes. If repletes are withdrawn from the colony, other workers evolve into repletes, indicating the flexibility of this particular polymorphism. This polymorphism in workers' morphology and behavior was initially thought to be chosen by environmental elements such as nutrition and hormones that led to diverse developmental paths. However, genetic distinctions between worker castes have been reported in acromyrmex. Minor genetic differences cause these polymorphisms. Differences in a single gene of Solenopsis invicta can determine whether the colony will have single or numerous queens. The Australian jack jumper ant holds only a single pair of chromosomes, with the males having just one chromosome as they are haploid, the lowest number known for any animal, making it a thrilling subject for genetics and developmental biology examinations of social insects. Genome size is an essential characteristic of an organism. Ants have been found to have tiny genomes, with genome size change happening through loss and accumulation of non-coding regions, mainly transposable features, and sometimes by whole genome replication. This may be linked to colonization methods, but further investigations are required to confirm this. The life of an ant begins from an egg. If the egg is fertilized, the offspring will be female diploid. If not, it will be male haploid. Ants develop by total metamorphosis, with the larva passing through a pupal phase before emerging as an adult. The larva is essentially stationary and is fed and cared for by workers. Food is given to the larva by trophallaxis, a method in which an ant regurgitates liquid meals stored in its crop. This is also how adults share food in the social stomach. Larvae, particularly in the later stages, may also be fed solid food such as trophic eggs, pieces of prey, and seeds carried by workers. The larvae develop via 4 or 5 molts and enter the pupal stage. The pupa has its appendages free and not fused to the body as in a butterfly pupa. The differentiation into queens and workers, both females and various castes of workers, is affected in some species by the larva nourishment. Genetic effects and the control of gene manifestation by the developmental environment are complex, and caste determination continues to be an investigation subject. Winged male ants, called drones, arise from pupae and the usually winged breeding females. Some types, such as army ants, have wingless queens. Larvae and pupa must be kept at fairly consistent temperatures to assure appropriate development, and frequently move around among the various brood chambers within the colony. A new agate spends the first few days of its adult life tending to the queen and the young. She then graduates to digging and other nest duties, later supporting the nest and foraging. These changes are occasionally somewhat sudden and define what are called temporal castes. An explanation for the sequence is indicated by the high casualties involved in foraging, making it an adequate risk only for older ants and likely to die shortly of natural causes. Ant colonies can be long-lived. The queens can live for up to 30 years, and workers live from 1 to 3 years. Males are more transitory, somewhat short-lived, and survive only a few weeks. Ant queens are gauged to live 100 times, as long as solitary insects of a similar size. Ants are busy all year long in the tropics, but in cooler areas they survive the winter in a state of inactivity known as hibernation. The forms of inaction are mixed, and some temperate species have larvae going into the inactive state. In contrast, the adults independently pass the winter through reduced activity in others. Communication. Ants communicate with each other using pheromones, sounds, and touch. Since most ants live on the ground, they use the soil surface to leave pheromone trails that other ants may follow. In types that forage in groups, a forager that discovers food draws a path on the way back to the colony. Other ants track this trail, strengthening the route when they head back with meals. When the food source is depleted, no new tracks are designated by returning ants, and the aroma slowly disperses. This conduct helps ants negotiate differences in their surroundings. For instance, when an obstruction clogs an established route to a food source, the foragers leave the path to explore new avenues. If an ant is successful, it leaves a new trail drawing the fastest track on its return. Successful courses are tracked by more ants, strengthening better pathways and slowly determining the best path. Ants use pheromones for more than just creating trails. A crushed ant radiates an alarm pheromone that dispatches nearby ants into an attack frenzy and draws more ants from farther away. Several ant species even use propaganda pheromones to confuse enemy ants and make them clash among themselves. Pheromones are created by many structures, including Dufal's glands, poison glands, and glands on the hindgut, pygidium, rectum, sternum, and hind tibia. Pheromones also are swapped, combined with food, and passed by trophallaxis, disseminating data within the colony. This permits other ants to glimpse what task group other colony members belong to. In ant varieties with queen castes, workers start to raise new queens in the colony when the prevailing queen stops making a distinctive pheromone. Some ants make sounds by stridulation, using the gaster segments and their mandibles. Sounds may be employed to speak with colony members or with other species. Defense. Ants attack and defend themselves by biting and, in many species, by stinging, usually injecting or spewing chemicals. Bullet ants, located in Central and South America, are believed to have the most painful sting of any insect, although it is usually not lethal to humans. This sting is given the highest rating on the Schmidt Sting Pain Index. The sting of jackjumper ants can be fatal, and an antivenom has been developed. Fire ants are unique in having a venom sac housing piperidine alkaloids. Their stings are distressing and can be harmful to hypersensitive people. Formicine ants secrete a poison from their glands, mainly formic acid. Trapjaw ants of the genus Odontomachus are equipped with mandibles called trapjaws, which snap shut faster than any other predatory appendages within the animal kingdom. One analysis of Odontomachus borii documented peak speeds of between 78 and 143 miles per hour, with the jaws locking within 130 microseconds on average. The ants were also observed to use their jaws as a catapult to expel intruders or fling themselves backward to evade a threat. Before striking, the ant spreads its mandibles extremely widely and locks them in this position via an internal mechanism. Energy is stored in a dense band of muscle and explosively discharged when activated by stimulating sensory organs resembling hairs inside the mandibles. The mandibles also allow slow and subtle motions for other jobs. Trap jaws are also seen in other ponies such as Anachaetus, and some genera in the tribe Atini such as Dasyton, Orectognathus, and Strumigenes, considered instances of convergent evolution. A Malaysian ant species in the Camponotus cylindricus group has broadened mandibular glands that expand into their gaster. Suppose a battle takes a turn for the worse. In that instance, a worker might execute a final act of suicidal altruism by rupturing the membrane of its gaster, causing the content of its mandibular glands to burst from the anterior part of its head, spraying a poisonous, corrosive secretion comprising astaphenones and other chemicals that immobilize small insect attackers. The worker later dies. Suicidal defenses by workers are also documented in a Brazilian ant, Forelius pusillus, where a small cluster of ants leaves the safety of the nest after closing the entrance from the outside each night. Ant mound holes stop water from penetrating the nest during rain. In defense against predators, ants must defend their colonies from pathogens. Some worker ants preserve the colony's hygiene, including undertaking necrophoresis and the disposal of dead nestmates. Oleic acid has been identified as the compound emitted from dead ants that activates necrophobic behavior in Atta mexicana. At the same time, workers of Linepithema humile respond to the lack of characteristic chemicals present on the cuticle of their living nestmates to trigger similar behavior. Nests may be protected from physical threats such as flooding and overheating by intricate nest architecture. Workers of Catalicus muticus, an arboreal species that lives in plant hollows, react to flooding by drinking water inside the nest and discharging it outside. Camponotus anderseni, which nests in the cavities of wood in mangrove habitats, deals with submergence underwater by switching to anaerobic respiration. Learning behavior. Many animals can comprehend behaviors by imitation, but ants may be the only group apart from mammals where interactive instruction has been seen. A knowledgeable forager of Temnothorax albipennis can lead a naive nestmate to newly uncovered food via tandem running. The follower receives details through their leading teacher. The leader is acutely sensitive to the follower's progress and slows down when the follower lags and speeds up when the follower gets too close. Controlled investigations with colonies of Serapentes burroi indicate that an individual may pick nest roles based on her prior background. An entire generation of identical workers was split into two groups whose outcome in food foraging was regulated. One group was constantly rewarded with prey while ensuring the other failed. As an upshot, members of the successful group strengthened their foraging endeavors, while the unsuccessful group embarked outward fewer and fewer times. A month later, the successful foragers persisted in their role, while the others had moved to specialize in brood care. Nest construction. Complex nests are built by numerous ant species, but other species are nomadic and do not build permanent installations. Ants may form subterranean nests or create them on trees. These nests may be located in the ground, under rocks or logs, inside logs, hollow stems, or even acorns. The materials used for the building include soil and plant matter, and ants carefully choose their nest locations. Temnothorax albipennis will bypass sites with dead ants, as these may suggest the presence of pests or disease. They are quick to ditch established nests at the first sign of hazards. The army ants of South America, such as the Essiton burchelli variety, and the driver ants of Africa do not construct permanent nests, but alternate between nomadism and phases where the workers create a temporary nest from their bodies by holding each other together. Weaver ant workers build nests in trees by attaching leaves, first pulling them together with the bridges of workers and then causing their larvae to create silk as they are carried along the leaf edges. Similar conditions of nest building are seen in some species of polyhatches. Formica polyctena, among other ant species, builds nests that harbour a relatively stable interior temperature that assists in the evolution of larvae. The ants carry the nest temperature by selecting the site and nest materials, maintaining ventilation and heat from solar radiation, worker activity, metabolism, and in some moist nests, microbial movement in the nest materials. Some ant species, such as those that use natural cavities, can be opportunistic and use the steady microclimate supplied inside human dwellings and other artificial facilities to house their colonies and nest configurations. Most ants are generalist predators, scavengers, and indirect herbivores, but a few have evolved specialized ways of getting nutrition. It is believed that many ant species that employ indirect herbivory rely on specialized symbiosis with their gut microbes to boost the nutritional value of the food they accumulate and permit them to survive in nitrogen-poor areas, such as rainforests, canopies. Leafcutter ants feed solely on a fungus that grows only within their colonies. They constantly collect leaves taken to the colony, cut into tiny pieces, and positioned in fungal gardens. Their gates specialize in related jobs according to their sizes. The largest ants cut stalks, smaller workers chew the leaves, and the smallest tend the fungus. Leafcutter ants are sensitive enough to identify the reaction of the fungus to different plant material, apparently noticing chemical cues from the fungus. The colony will no longer gather if a particular type of leaf is toxic to the fungus. The ants feed on structures produced by the fungi called Condylidia. Symbiotic bacteria on the exterior surface of the ants make antibiotics that kill bacteria introduced into the nest that may harm the fungi. Navigation. Foraging ants trek up to 700 feet from their nest, and scent trails permit them to find their way back even in the darkness. In hot and arid regions, day-foraging ants face death by desiccation, so the ability to see the shortest route back to the nest decreases that danger. Diurnal desert ants of the genus Cataglyphis, such as the Sahara desert ant, steer by keeping track of the direction and span traversed. Lengths traveled are calculated using an internal pedometer that counts the steps taken and estimates the movement of objects in their visual field. Paths are calculated using the position of the sun. They integrate this information to find the shortest way back to their nest. Like all ants, they can also employ visual landmarks when available and olfactory and tactile cues to navigate. Some species of ants can use the Earth's magnetic field for navigation. The compound eyes of ants have specialized cells that see polarized light from the sun, which determines direction. These polarization detectors are sensitive in the ultraviolet region of the light spectrum. In some army ant species, a group of foragers who diverge from the central column may sometimes turn back on themselves and form a circular ant mill. The workers may then run around continuously until they die of exhaustion. Locomotion. The female worker ants do not have wings, and reproductive females lose their wings after mating flights to start their colonies. Therefore, unlike their wasp ancestors, most ants traverse by walking. Some species are capable of jumping. For example, Jerdam's jumping ant can jump by synchronizing the movement of its mid and hind pairs of legs. Several species of gliding ants, including Cephalotes atratus, may be a standard trait among arboreal ants with small colonies. Ants with this capability can maintain their horizontal movement to catch tree trunks when they fall from atop the forest canopy. Other species of ants can create chains to bridge gaps over water, underground, or through spaces in vegetation. Some species also include floating rafts that help them endure floods. These rafts may also have a role in allowing ants to inhabit islands. Polyhachis sokolova, an ant found in Australian mangrove swamps, can swim and live in underwater nests. Since they lack gills, they go to trapped pockets of air in the submerged nests to breathe. Cooperation and competition. Not all ants have the same kind of communities. The Australian bulldog ants are among the biggest and most basal ants. Like nearly all ants, they are eusocial, but their social behavior is poorly developed compared to other species. Each individual hunts alone, using their large eyes instead of chemical senses to locate prey. Some species attack and take over nearby ant colonies. Extreme specialists among these slave-raiding ants, such as the Amazon ants, cannot feed themselves and need apprehended workers to endure. Captured workers of enslaved Temnophorax species have developed a counter-strategy, destroying just the female pupae of the slave-making Temnophorax americanus, but sparing the males, who do not take part in slave raiding as adults. Ants recognize kin and nestmates through their scent, which comes from hydrocarbon-laced secretions that coat their exoskeletons. If an ant is detached from its original colony, it will someday lose the colony scent. Any ant that enters a colony without a matching scent will be attacked. Parasitic ant species enter the colonies of host ants and establish themselves as social parasites. Species such as Strumigenes tinos are entirely parasitic and do not have workers, but instead depend on the food collected by their Strumigenes perplexa hosts. This form of parasitism is seen across many ant genera, but the parasitic ant is usually a species that is closely related to its host. Various methods are used to enter the nest of the host ant. A parasitic queen may penetrate the host nest before the first brood hatches, inaugurating herself before developing a colony scent. Other species use pheromones to confound the host ants or to trick them into taking the parasitic queen into the nest. Some fight their way into the nest. A conflict between the sexes of a species is seen in some species of ants, with these reproducers contending to deliver offspring that are as closely related to them as possible. The most extreme form concerns the production of clonal offspring. An intense conflict is seen in Wasmannia oropunctata, where the queens produce diploid daughters by Phelitochus parthenogenesis, and males create clones by a process whereby a diploid egg loses its maternal contribution to produce haploid males who are clones of the father. Relationship with humans. Ants perform many ecological roles that benefit humans, including suppressing pest populations and aeration of the soil. Using weaver ants in citrus cultivation in southern China is considered one of the oldest known applications of biological control. On the other hand, ants may become nuisances when they invade buildings or cause economic losses. In some parts of the world, mainly Africa and South America, large ants, especially army ants, are used as surgical sutures. The wound is pressed together, and ants are applied along it. The ant seizes the wound's edges in its mandibles and locks it in place. The body is then cut off, and the head and mandibles remain in place to close the wound. The large heads of the soldiers of the leaf-cutting ant Atacephalodes are also used by native surgeons in closing wounds. Some ants have toxic venom and are of medical importance. The species include Paraponera clavata, Anthocandaras of South America, and the Myrmecia ants of Australia. In South Africa, ants are used to help harvest the seeds of Rubus aspalathus linearis, a plant used to make herbal tea. The plant disperses its seeds widely, making manual collection difficult. Black ants collect and store these and other seeds in their nest, where humans can gather them en masse. Up to half a pound of seeds may be collected from one ant heap. Although most ants survive attempts by humans to eradicate them, a few are highly endangered. These tend to be island species with evolved specialized traits and risk being displaced by introduced ant species. Examples include the critically endangered Sri Lankan relict ant and Adatomyrma venatrix of Madagascar. E.O. Wilson has estimated that the total number of individual ants alive in the world at any one time is between 1 and 10 quadrillions between the years 1015 and 1016. According to this estimate, the total biomass of all the ants worldwide is approximately equal to the total biomass of the entire human race. According to this estimate, there are also approximately 1 million ants for every human on Earth. Ants and their larvae are eaten in different parts of the world. The eggs of 2 species of ants are used in Mexican Eskimos. They are considered insect caviar and can sell for as much as $50 per kilogram. Going up to $200 per kilogram is seasonal and hard to find. In the Colombian department of Santander, Hormigas colomas, also known as the large-bottomed ant, Hatta lavigata, are toasted alive and eaten. In areas of India and throughout Burma and Thailand, a paste of the green weaver ant is served as a condiment with curry. Weaver ant eggs and larvae, as well as the ants, may be used in a Thai salad yam, in a dish called yam kai mot dang or red ant egg salad, a dish that comes from the Assam or northeastern region of Thailand. In The Naturalist in Australia, Saville Kent wrote, "Beauty, in the case of the green ant, is more than skin deep. Their attractive, almost sweetmeat-like translucency possibly invited the first essays at their consumption by the human species. Mashed up in the water, after the manner of lemon squash, these ants form a pleasant acid drink held in high favour by the natives of North Queensland and is even appreciated by many European palates." In his first summer in the Sierra, John Muir notes that the Digger Indians of California ate the tickling, acid gasters of the giant jet-black carpenter ants. The Mexican Indians eat a honey ants repeats or living honeypots. Ants can also be pesky. Some ant species are considered pests, primarily in human habitations, where their presence is often problematic. For example, ants would be undesirable in sterile places such as hospitals or kitchens. Some species or genera commonly categorized as pests include the Argentine ant, immigrant pavement ant, yellow crazy ant, banded sugar ant, farrow ant, redwood ant, black carpenter ant, odorous house ant, red imported fire ant, and European fire ant. Some ants will raid stored food. Some will seek water sources, others may damage indoor structures, and some may damage crops directly or by aiding sucking pests. Some will sting or bite. The adaptive nature of ant colonies makes it nearly impossible to eliminate entire colonies, and most pest management practices aim to control local populations and tend to be temporary solutions. Ant populations are managed by a combination of approaches that make use of chemical, biological, and physical methods. Chemical methods include insecticidal bait gathered by ants as food and brought back to the nest, where the poison is inadvertently spread to other colony members through trophallaxis. Management is based on the species, and techniques may vary according to the location and circumstance. Ants will continue to further our imaginations and fascinate the masses. Their tenacity and strength are like nothing else in this world.